Hello everyone. I am going to take some time to walk you through writing a lesson plan for K through 3. So if you're choosing K through 3 again for this assignment, you can use the Creative Curriculum Program as a guide. It's a multi-page PDF document that essentially gives you lots of resources and ideas for the brainstorming process. So that's just there for your use. You may choose to use it to help you with this assignment. And if you decide that you want to do a K through 3 lesson plan, then you can take a look here at the instructions. If you choose to create a K through 3 lesson plan, then you may start by watching this amazing video. I think it's really helpful. It's 4 minutes and it takes you through the steps of an 8-step lesson plan template. So that is there to guide you. Again, is just there as a resource. And then you can also view the sample first grade lesson plan, which we'll look at in just a moment. Here is the blank K through 12 lesson plan template. So it's the same template that you would use for this assignment. And you would just open up the Word document and type directly into it, save it, and then upload it into Canvas. So my recommendation when doing a K through 3 lesson plan is to first decide what content area you want to use for your lesson. So do you want it to be language arts? Do you want it to be science, social studies, visual performing arts, etc.? So here are the Common Core Content Standards for grades K through 12. So this is going to kind of be your roadmap for helping you decide how to write your lesson. I always say that the standards tell you what to teach, and then you can use your creativity to determine how you're going to teach that. So in order to get the what first, we can click here to this link. I'm going to go ahead and click on English Language Arts as my choice. So you see here this link, you will get the standards for English Language Arts, history, social science, science, technical subjects, and then also math if you click here. So let's click on English Language Arts. And it may look overwhelming. It's a pretty big document, but if you look at the table of contents over here on the left, you can see, for example, if I want the standards for ELA, which stands for English Language Arts and Literacy, then I can click here. Okay, and then if I scroll down a bit, I'll start seeing some standards. So it'll look like this. So for example, kindergartners, if you're looking in this domain of key idea and details, here would be an example of a standard that you would choose to drive your lesson. Number 1, with prompting and support, ask and answer questions about key details in text. For grade 1, a comparable standard would be ask and answer questions about key details in a text. And then over here, grade 2, a comparable standard would be ask and answer such questions as who, what, where, when, why, and how to demonstrate understanding of key details in a text. So you would label that, whichever one of these you choose, you would label it RL, which is Reading Standards for Literature. RL, for example, RL 1.K, I would say that for kindergarten, RL 1.1 for first grade, RL 1.2 for second grade. So that could be a way that you label them. So again, you choose your standard here, and then that will go into the lesson plan template. So let's take a look at what the lesson plan template looks like. All right, so it's pretty straightforward. Name, date, grade level, subject. So the grade level of the student you want to teach is either going to be kindergarten, first, second, or third grade. Subject would be the content area. Standards, that's what we were just looking at. So you would input the standards there, very important. And then the objective, SWABOT, stands for students will be able to. So what is it that you want students to demonstrate that they have learned and are able to do at the end of your lesson? Anticipatory set, that's the do now. Direct instruction, that's the meat of your lesson. Guided practice is what the teacher is doing with the students to give them an opportunity to practice what they're learning. And then the closure is how you tie what they've learned. You kind of wrap up, see what the students have gotten from the lesson. If there are any misconceptions or confusions, that would be an opportunity to clarify. And then independent practice, now that the students have learned a new skill or concept, you're giving them an opportunity to practice on their own or in small groups. Required materials comes here, and then assessment and follow-up. Now, this is important because we are learning about exceptionalities in this class, so it's really important that you make sure that you address these 3 different subgroups. GATE stands for Gifted and Talented Education, so these are students that excel in some areas. EL stands for English Learner, so how are you going to adapt the lesson for students for whom English is not their first language, and then SPED is for our children with special needs. So let's take a look at an example that I have here, and then we can apply kind of the blank template to see what that might look like in practice. All right, so this is a student sample, first grade health. They have their standard is essential concepts, objective, name and describe the 5 senses. Students will be able to name and describe their 5 senses: vision, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Very important when you're writing an objective, make sure that they are specific and measurable. So oftentimes students will write things like students will know, or students will understand, or students will learn. Know, learn, and understand are not measurable. How are we going to determine that a student knows something or has learned something or understands something? So one way would be specific. So name and describe. So think about the verbs, or we call those levels of cognition. How would we determine that a student has learned this objective, name and describe the 5 senses? Well, we have them name and describe their 5 senses: vision, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. So imagine if we were to say students will know their 5 senses, and that's your objective. How are you going to measure that they know it? A student can say, oh yeah, I know it, and you take their word for it, but they haven't been given the opportunity to demonstrate that knowledge. So make sure that you're very specific. The next is our anticipatory set. This is how you get the students' attention and draw them into the lesson. So this particular lesson will have the students complete a census fun worksheet, which is followed by a 2 to 3 minute class discussion in which we will explain to each other how we know that our worksheet responses are correct. We will also discuss why each of our senses is important. And if you look at the bottom, the student included an example of this worksheet. So the students get to think about things that they can see, and they get to list those here, things that they can hear, things they can smell, taste, and touch. So if you think about it, that would be a fun opening activity. You can even get more creative. Okay, so the next part is direct instruction. And notice that there are times, estimated times for each section, so please include those as well. Direct instruction is what input or what new information is the teacher going to be presenting to the student. So we have here, teacher will ask that the students close their eyes, etc. So notice that for direct instruction, it's teacher will, teacher will, teacher will. So the teacher is leading that part of the lesson. And then here we get to guided practice. Now that the teacher has given direct instruction, now the students have an opportunity to practice with the teacher's guidance. It could be with other students in small groups, etc. So here we have the teacher will place posters around the classroom, each labeled one of the 5 senses. To check for understanding, the teacher will pass around a few Post-its that will have a word written on them. The students will have to place it on the correct poster. All right, so closure. This is again where you're bringing students back together after the direct instruction and guided practice. Teacher will ask that the students review their census fun worksheet and that they make any additions or changes based on what they learn. And I like this particular closure activity because it gives students an opportunity to make modifications. So before the lesson, they may have written certain things down on that census fun worksheet, and now that the teacher has given them input and they've done their guided practice, they might want to add things to their list, or they maybe realize that they put things in the wrong place. So this is a great opportunity for students to clarify any misconceptions or confusions. Independent practice. So just like it sounds, this is where students, once they've had an opportunity to learn a new skill. They've had a chance to practice it with teachers' guidance. Now they're practicing it on their own or in small groups because collaboration is important. And I think that is now becoming part of independent practice where it can be students working with other students. Materials listed all go here in this section, and then assessment and follow-up. This should always connect back to your objective, whatever you said students should know and be able to do. Remember at the top, it said that they will list their senses. So students will be able to name and describe their 5 senses. So make sure that your assessment, students will complete the senses quiz, which consists of pairing up words with one of the senses. So the assessment does match the objective. And then for our special populations, we have different modifications. So for our gifted students, same activities, but the students will be asked more challenging questions and will be allowed to venture around the area and find their own items to place in the bucket, possibly even alter the scheduling. For English learners, we would allow extra time to complete the assignment, a lot more pictures, body language, for example, pointing and pairing up students strategically. And then for special students with special needs, depending on their disability, we can provide a designated reader, larger print, audio tape recorder, special seating area, etc. And then again, here is a sample of one of the activities that the students do in the lesson. And one thing that I would remind you is when writing any lesson plan, use the substitute test. And that is, imagine that you plan this great lesson and you have to call in sick that morning. And you know the substitute is going to be covering your lesson. Is your lesson plan detailed enough that a substitute teacher can follow your lesson plan step by step and be able to carry out exactly the way that you envisioned it? So the more specific you are, the better. So imagine passing off your lesson plan to someone who did not have any part in planning it. Would they know exactly step by step what to do, what the students are expected to do, what materials are to be used, etc.? So the more specific, the better. So I hope that helped in giving you a little bit more direction on how to write a lesson plan. Have fun. So remember, this should be a lot of fun. When you choose a standard, it just tells you the what to teach, but you get to be creative and come up with the why. So happy lesson planning.